Right, so welcome to Leanne Rowe, who is an independent HR consultant working with CLAR HR.
Yeah.
You're also a domestic violence survivor.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go with the elephant in the room, first of all.
Yeah.
HR. The
Yeah.
first thing people think about HR is, oh, God, here we go. Sue from HR, who's going to cause a problem. No.
Yeah, why are they in the building?
What
Yeah, what's going on?
There's a big thing about HR, isn't there?
Yeah.
When people hear it, they think, oh...
Yeah, I had it yesterday at a client. Yeah. Why is she here? Am I in trouble? Well,
that's it,
you must have done something if you're worried why I'm here.
What do HR actually do?
So probably there's a couple of different things, but really we're there to protect businesses, to make sure that they're legally compliant, you know, and also that their staff have everything that they need, you know, from their contracts. So they're setting out expectations right through to sort of well-being, and then also strategy and growth.
Yeah.
So helping businesses grow as well as making them legally compliant, trying to protect staff as well, really. So make sure that staff conform and they perform as well at the same time.
Yeah. Why do you think people hate HR so much? Why do you think that is?
So I did, for me, I mean, I accidentally fell into HR. It was something that organically happened. It wasn't a planned career.
Yeah.
And I think that most people who work in HR, it's never really... I'd never heard anybody say, yeah, I want to work in HR. You kind of, it finds you.
There, yeah.
But I've always been a people person anyway, so it kind of naturally I was approached to apply for a job. And people don't like it, though, because we represent, being conforming, having to conform, you know, not breaking the rules, doing things properly. So
people get told off a lot by HR. Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a way of telling them off, though. So you know, just kind of guiding them, because we're there for advice. You know, we're not there to beat people up with sticks, so we shouldn't be. Some of them try.
Yeah.
But we're there to advise, you know, and all we can do is advise. It's a bit like health and safety. You know, they can tell you what to do to make sure that everything's okay, but if you don't, it's on you.
Yeah.
So it's there to advise businesses and make sure that they follow the law, really.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if I was dealing with someone HR, I'd want to deal with someone like you, because you sound like a normal human being. Whereas some people probably do. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's after years and years and years, it gets a little bit bitter, but... People I've dealt with, I have dealt with people who are nice like yourself, and then people who are a little bit...
Yeah, just a bit too stuffy.
A bit stuffy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the right word, isn't it? You're definitely not stuffy. So tell me about you and your background. So you're a domestic violence survivor.
Yeah.
And there's some relation there to your HR position that you're in as well. Like... Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what have you been through and how have you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I've worked in HR over 20 something years now, I think it is. And you know, obviously this employment law is changing all the time. And my own, the reason I don't like the word survivor, I can't find a word for it yet. I'm trying to...
I don't know if there's another word.
Victim, survivor, you know, I just don't know what the right thing is.
You've just got through, you come out the other end of it.
I've got through it. It's made me what I am now.
Yeah.
But I didn't, you know, so when I was working in HR when I was going through it all, and I didn't know, I knew it was bad. I knew it was, but the constant threats of, you know, it was very controlling as well, very clever, very slow, crept up on me. And I was always in control of my life, always doing my own thing. And then, you know, kind of like the typical things happen, you know, affairs, make you think that you're crazy, all of that type of thing, controlling money. Criticisms, all the classic type things that they start to do, just pick away.
Like narcissism or...
I didn't even know what narcissism was before. So all these buzzwords that came out, and I was like, what is that? I don't even know. And people overuse the word, I think, as well.
I think they do,
he's such a narc, or she's such a narc. It's down to the individual, really. But I look back and I think, how did that happen? And it was such a slow thing for me, and it was really... you know, to the point where I lost myself in that process. And, you know, it ended up being a very difficult time of my life. And not really understanding what was going on. You know, it was always very turbulent at home. When there'd be any kind of conversation to try and sort things out, you know, they'd leave and disappear for weeks, months, and come back, you know, when they felt like it, you know, and just trying to avoid arguments all the time and me staying quiet, because... if I brought something up, could argue over a fly climbing up the wall and he'd just disappear.
Was it almost like being made to feel like everything was your fault and then you were the problem? And
I was insecure, I was jealous. He just wasn't emotionally available ever, I don't think, so and played the same sob story to whoever walked past his his
so
footfall.
Everyone feels sorry for him and then you look like the bad person.
Yeah, I did, and I was made out to be the bad person, but it all, his chickens came home to roost eventually and the truth came out. And it wasn't until I left that situation, literally with the clothes on my back, that it took me a couple of weeks. It took my friend stopping me going out her door to go back, and and then I had to contact the police because I needed to get my belongings because he changed all the locks, couldn't get in, couldn't get my work stuff, couldn't get my clothes, couldn't get anything. And when the police pulled me in and they sat me down and they started unravelling, those sort of 14 years and asking questions. And I was like, all I want is some clean clothes. I just want my clean clothes. Yeah. And they were like, well, how have you gotten into this position? So it got to a point where over the course of a couple of months, they pulled me in and they were like, this is really bad. Did you know that, this is, you've been assaulted, you've ended up in hospital, and also, Leanne, do you realise you've been raped? So
you ended up in hospital.
Yeah. I was assaulted. Yeah.
Oh my God. So it was emotional and physical.
Yeah.
Abuse.
Well, yes, it was emotional, physical, psychological, financially, controlled things in the end. And very, very clever, very subtle, but unbeknown to me, behind the scenes, playing the sob story about how tough things were. But at the end of the day, the police pulled it in and said, this is wrong. And I'm like, I knew it was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. And they were like, do you realise? And I was like, oh, now I'm realising.
When someone else says it to you, or when you take a step back and look at it.
Yeah, when I actually was able to stand in and look at myself. Yeah. So, and it was difficult because friends then came, I hadn't seen for a long time because they'd all moved away from me because he was telling them all these horrible things. And they came back around and they were like, did you not know that he was saying this to us and that to us? And I was like, no, like making out that I was completely crazy, and people got sick of it and they moved, they kind of sort of disappeared, and that was part of the isolation thing.
Okay.
So, even my own children couldn't stand him. So
it's a thing, isn't it? Where if someone else is talking a lot about you and a lot of bad stuff about you and you're not saying anything, then eventually people are going to be like, well, they are saying a lot of bad things and they're the ones being really horrible about this person who is apparently really horrible. Yeah. But not saying anything. No. Eventually people are quite clued on and they realise.
Eventually they were, but it took years. And they were kind of like, we wonder, because we'd see you and you'd seem absolutely fine. And I'd say, well, why didn't you ever come and say? But they'd say, well, he told us not to because we didn't want it to cause an argument, and he'd get up and leave again and put you in that cycle of worry and stress and worrying where he is and whether he's safe.
You're worried about him.
I was worried about him.
About you.
No. I was worried about him because he'd make threats to his life. There'd be all sorts of different things that would go on. Yeah. But even during COVID, he disappeared for weeks, and I still don't know to this day, where he was. Yeah. But I kind of think now, I look back at it and I just think, wow, if I could have my time again, what would I do? What would I do differently? And the truth is, when you're in it, you can't see it. It's like a constant spinning cycle and you're always looking for the good. So when those good bits come in, you'll forget the rest.
Because you enjoy the good bits and you want those and you long for those. Yeah. That you just want to cling on to that. And when it comes around, you think, oh, this is actually not so bad. Yeah. I could live with this. Yeah. But then it happens again.
It was, and it was cyclical. It was cyclical. So, and I could feel it, I could feel it coming, and the atmosphere in the house would be terrible. Yeah. And there'd be picking arguments with my son. There'd be all sorts of different things, kind of going on. And I had my eldest daughter studying abroad at the time as well. So there were threats, against financially, if he left, he wouldn't pay his part of the bills, and if that happened, I wouldn't be able to keep my daughter in university. So I go, okay, I won't argue, I'll just shut up.
Have you got kids together? Are they both
thankfully.
Your kids? Oh, okay.
No.
I was going to say, because he was making threats that were against his own kids then, really?
But he was with me from when they were very little. Okay. So, he spent sort of 14 years in their life, really. But it was never a good thing from the start. I think my daughter sniffed him out. I just, now I look at it, she's like, I was right. I'm like, yeah, you were right.
She was aware of something a bit dodgy there.
Yeah, she was, yeah. So I kind of got to the point where you know, I had to go through the whole system, the whole system, the judicial system is broken. You know, it's a mess. And
why do you think it's broken?
Well, the police aren't trained enough. So in my situation, it took 10 months to arrest, at which point he got into my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
So during that 10-month period, he was able to like just turn up on your doorstep?
He wasn't supposed to know where I lived, but I'd been followed. Well, they said basically he'd followed me.
Wow.
And that's the only way he could have known. But very subtle, very clever, and stealth mode almost.
Oh my gosh.
And eventually when they did arrest, you know, it was kind of like, right, okay, this is real. It wasn't really I was a witness to it. It was the police leading it, and they were like, you know, this is really, really bad, Leanne. But they were poor, you know, they didn't have the resource, they didn't have the training. Even sometimes the officer that was dealing with me seemed cold, you know, on occasions.
A little bit blasé about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is just...
Yeah, and I was like, hang on, you've pulled me all this way down the line. Do you actually, you're going to do anything about this now? And how do I stop this happening again to somebody else? So we, you know, me and my friends at the time, we were kind of like, we need to push this a bit more, and we did. But eventually it got to court, but it took 3.5 years, of which point,
that's a long time.
A long time, yeah. And it's hard. And the only thing I can say is I couldn't really move on in those 3.5 years. I had to stay small. You know, my social media was pretty much off. You know, I was told to stay off grid. You know, my business I couldn't be a limited company because they were like access to it's all changed now since, thankfully. So I had to stay small and stay off the radar for kind of like, you know, so there was nothing that could be used against me or beaten up, you know, in court anymore.
That's crazy though, because you're putting your life on hold, aren't you?
Yeah, it was. It drove me nuts.
No fault of your own.
No.
Because somebody else has messed your life up. Like,
and you know, we did get to that D-Day point, and I was really quite brave because I didn't even want to even be breathing the same air. And it could have been done by a video, and I was like, on the day I was like, no, I'm going in. I'm going in. I need to suddenly I had some fight from somewhere in my belly, and suddenly I was angry for the first time ever. Because before, I don't know what I was feeling. It was kind of like, why would someone do this? Why does someone behave that way?
Like just
why
feeling really sorry for yourself.
Maybe, and trying to understand that how somebody can do that much and then try and blame you for it, you know, and it's crazy. So when we did get to the court day, and I did go in, they put a screen up, you know, there was. And, you know, I was roasted, obviously, but I was very, you know, his barrister was pretty hopeless, in all fairness. He got so many things wrong.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Maybe he knew that he had a bad side to fight
I don't know, because
it
went to, you know, he got away with it in the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by the skin of his teeth. And, you know, whilst it was an emotional roller coaster, I would never deter anyone from going in and being brave and standing up and saying your piece. And also, I took strength from that afterwards, because I thought, come on, Leanne, you know, this is, you know, you're not who you were back then. You need to stand up and you need to fight now. And on the day was pretty, you know, it was torturous, and it went on for 6 days in court.
Oh my God.
And the jury were just so split. And in the end, you know, two of my friends who sat in the entire hearing, I found out things about him in there. He was leading another life. He was sleeping with men and women, which I didn't even know about.
While he was with you?
While he was with me, and I didn't even know. It all came out in court. And when my friends told me this, I was like, oh, wow. So it was much worse.
There was even a lot that you didn't know about.
There were signs, and I used to think, oh, this is really weird. What am I picking up on? But never really kind of was able to pin it down to what it was. So we got to that point and we got through it, and he got away with it. But you know what? That's okay, because going through that harrowing process, I hope was enough to teach him a lesson to never do it again. But I think he will. You know, I think he will. So
if you've got away with it, and also if you're that kind of person anyway, you're not going to change.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to momentarily change, but then you're always going to go back to what you were.
Well, to me, he hid what he was
Not
for 10
always,
years.
but
yeah, he hid what he was for 10 years. You know, he had this terrible alter ego.
Yeah.
And he wasn't quite sure of himself, I don't think, you know, from which gender he was. And I was kind of thinking, what am I feeling here? What is this going on?
He's a very confused person.
Yeah. And if that's what it was, that's what it was. But leave me alone, stop coming back, leave me alone. But he didn't. It was like that. And if there was a sniff of anybody else around me when the periods when we weren't together, he'd be back like a magnet, you know. So
because he wanted to have the control of having you, but then he could do what he wanted, basically.
Yeah, but I was the one
like you're mine.
Yeah, but I was always the one off cheating and doing these things, and it was like I was the one working the really hard job and looking after 3 of my children, working away all the time. You know.
Why did he think you were cheating? Did he genuinely think you were cheating, or did he just tell other people that's what you were doing?
He never told me. He told others.
Oh, so it was just something to tell other people to make you look bad.
Yeah, and it was, you know, he didn't never really accuse me. It was kind of, there was a time when we weren't together and he was like, oh, well, you went and, you know, saw so-and-so. And I was like, we weren't together for a period of about 4 or 5 months at that point.
Yeah.
And the whole time, by the way, you were having another life in London that I did know about, but you told everyone I was crazy about. And when I proved it, you still told everybody I was crazy.
Oh my God.
So
it's crazy, isn't it? How did he come across in court, like against you? Then was he saying a lot of bad things that were lies that he'd been saying when you were in a relationship?
Yeah. From what the girls told me, from what my friends told me.
Was he very convincing?
No.
Okay. I was just wondering why they were torn as to
I think so. It was a time. So there was a lot of from what my friends told me that when he was cross-examined, there were a lot of lies that he was caught out on when they produced evidence. But it was at a time, I don't know if you remember, it was last year, sort of last summertime, last autumn time. The prisons were full and they were releasing people.
Right.
And it was at that time, and I remember thinking, oh well, okay, they're not
There's
really.
no chance.
Yeah, they're going to keep the worst in there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that he's not the best either. So, but it was at that time, and I accepted it because I was kind of like, right, I'm so over this now, and but I at that point, because I think I'd put my grieving on hold for so many years. You know, I kind of sort of hit the floor really. But in the January of this year, I kind of thought, right, Leanne, enough's enough now. You pick your head up, start getting on with your life. This has got to stop holding you back because, you know, even posting on social media, I'd be like, I could hear like the criticism in you know, the back of my mind, the things that he used to say because he hated social media, didn't like social media. You know, he's a ghost online. You can't find him online, but there's a reason because he's having so many secrets.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
It does now, but I never knew at the time. So I kind of sat there the one day and I thought it was quite a cathartic thing, sitting down and typing out the thoughts in my head. If I had my time again, what would I tell? If it was someone else, I got goosebumps thinking of it. If it was someone else, how could I help them? How could I tell them? And what should you look for? What questions, the ones you internalise, you know, what these things that scream at you and you go, oh, I don't know what this is. So I started writing these things down, just typing them up. And I thought, wow, I can put these into some slides. And then the concept was, wow, well, hang on a minute. You know, the government now are also saying that they're going to be making employers more responsible.
Yeah, you were talking about this with the HR as well, weren't you? Like the change that's coming in for employers. Yeah, the
change that's coming in for employers. We don't know quite when it will because of the push and pull between the government and House of Lords at the moment. But the government now are going to be making it more, employers more responsible for protecting people and supporting people going through domestic violence. Male, female, any gender. It doesn't discriminate, you know. And people say to me, "You're a smart girl, Leanne. How did this happen to you?" And I'm like, "You tell me." But it did. And I'm a very trusting, very open, I was a very trusting, very open person and always would look for the good in someone. And I literally was railroaded.
Yeah.
And when you're in work, most people spend 80% of their time in work. And gone are the days where people leave the problems at the door, you know. So certainly in post-COVID times now, the world has changed.
Yeah.
And DV domestic violence during that period heightened massively because people were locked up together.
They had nowhere to go, did they?
They had nowhere to go, so it got worse.
Yeah.
It really got worse. So, and the psychological impact, even if it's not physical, is something that it's almost worse. I feel if I'd been black and blue, it would have been easier almost.
Yeah. Well, it sticks with you, doesn't it? The mental abuse, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
And you probably react to certain things later on in your life, maybe in your relationships later on down the line.
Yeah,
you'd react a certain way
based
on how you used to get treated in your past relationship. Not even like you don't want to react that way, but you're just so used to being treated a certain way. It's
and you guard so high, you're on tender alert. So, but I think the government now are making it more responsibility, putting more responsibility on employers. So they're going to be introducing 10 days paid leave and risk assessments, changing mobile phones, changing laptops, post redirection, all of those types of things when people are going through these situations. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I work in HR and people think that you're steely, you're horrid, nobody likes you, and how can it happen to you? It as I say, it can happen to anybody. So it can happen to the less fortunate in society, to right the way up, to the top.
You
of
could
society.
be the most intelligent person, who's very clued on and very aware of everything. And
I am now.
Yeah.
I am now. All these words, that where they talk about gaslighting and coercive and controlling. But I was like, what is that? I don't even know what these words are.
Yeah.
And I was, I had a support worker, an IDVA, an independent domestic violence advisor, and she was brilliant through the whole process. She'd ring and she'd check in and she'd say these things, and I just would say, I think I'm going crazy. I'm constantly looking for his car on the road, and I know he's changed his car, but I'm constantly looking. And she'd be like, you're not crazy, you're just hypervigilant. And I'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy.
Yeah, these things.
Why are they changing the way employers support people who are dealing with domestic violence? Why have they decided to do that?
Yeah, I think because if ever there's a crisis in government, and we know one of the things I would say, we know domestic violence happens a lot. It happened in the 50s, the 60s. It's happened since time began. Yeah, but as we kind of evolving, we know this is not right, and the impact on society, the impact on families, children, and it kind of, the cycles keep happening. And I think if ever there's the government say we have a crisis and they want to do something about it, they always put it on employers, because employers are the ones who've got people all day long. So which is fair enough to a degree. It's tough, all the other things they're putting on top of employers at the moment, but in terms of that, from a well-being perspective, from an HR perspective, we're looking at employees' well-being. And if somebody's in the workplace and they're having a really tough time, and you just think, oh, they've had an argument with their husband last night or with the wife or whatever it might be, and that's okay, that happens, that's normal. But there are other flags and other signs that businesses need to be educating their staff on, not just the managers, but also the employees, because if you're sitting and you're listening, and there are so many people at the moment that stand there, and it really bugs me, we'll talk about their story. And they'll stand there and I'll go, this has happened, and people in the room, they're so upset and they feel sorry for them and they cry, and I'm like, okay, so you're telling everybody about your terrible journey, but what are you doing about it? How are you helping? So in my job as HR, from an employment perspective, that's how I can help.
Okay.
So it's kind of,
what would you do in that situation then, in your job?
Yeah, so, well, I've come across it. I've got a case on the go at the moment, and that's actually a male. We've got it going through. So I provide the training, but also when I do come across it, it is making people aware of understanding what the signs are, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and different people have different levels of acceptance, obviously, but what is the norm and what is not the norm, what those flags are, what the signs can be, whether or not somebody's poor performing, whether their bank details are being paid, or their salaries being paid into their partner's bank account, whether the partner's constantly outside, every day. I'm dealing with a case at the moment like that, where luckily the client has twigged, and she rang me up and she went, Leanne, I've got the situation with a member of staff, it's not quite right. And I knew what she was going to say. And she said, the partner's outside, you know, he's revving his car, he's yelling at her to get in. And this is a regular thing. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
So she can't talk to anyone as she leaves.
She's got to rush. And she's leaving. She's leaving 5 minutes before, going to the toilet to make sure she doesn't leave 1 minute past 5. So she's out that door.
Wow.
Yeah, it's classic signs, and we're monitoring it. And from an employment perspective, is making sure that employers document it then as well, and make sure that if they're signposting to relevant organisations, and there are lots out there, that they're telling the individual, because you can't make someone do something. There's got to be the right time. You don't want to intervene and make things more dangerous.
You can't force it, can you?
No,
they need to want the help. And yeah.
And that time, my moment came. It wasn't expected, and I took it. And then when I was out and I looked back in, I was kind of like, oh wow, why have I wasted all these years?
Yeah.
You know, what the biggest regret of my life. So,
I suppose the way you have to see it though is, look, everything that's happened to you makes you the person you are today.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't
I'm proud of that.
Your personality necessarily as a whole person if you hadn't been through that situation.
Yeah.
Because it makes you a deeper thinker, doesn't it? And a more aware and more wise. Yeah,
and when you take that time to reflect and you look at you and you kind of like, well, why did I pick someone like that? I look back now to 2007, 2008. There were classic hallmarks then, but nobody knew in 2007, 2008 what these red flags were.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I'm like, whoa, you know, I could see it, and slowly, you know, it kind of evolved it got worse. The secretism, the darkness, the moods, the you know, not being emotionally available, disappearing, and all these types of tricks, you know, that he used to pull. So, and I look at it all now and I think, wow, I know what I don't want now, and I know 110% what I do want.
This is the thing, at least you know what to look for now.
Yeah.
Like you would see a red flag straight away.
Yeah, I do.
Based on your experience.
Yeah.
Not that anyone wants to go through that, because ideally you'd never go through that situation, but I suppose take a positive out of it. You're more aware of, you know, things that could go wrong, or, you know, people's personalities, things to be aware of, like little nuggets of, like, I don't know, I suppose it's a case of like finding those little things that make you think there's something not quite right with this person. Can't put my finger on it, but I'm not keen, or I don't want to continue with this, I don't think, because I'm aware that this is the start of something that could go wrong.
There is a line as well, because so at the beginning I was kind of, I wouldn't let anyone near, you know, and it took, I'd be like so vigilant that nobody got a sniff.
Yeah, there's the other side of it. You'd be extreme on the other side.
Yeah, I'd be
like,
anyone
no.
But
don't want anyone.
You also do, one of the big things that I say now as well is, when you're fresh out of those situations, the only thing I can do is describe them as emotional vampires.
Yeah.
There's other people in the midst. They see that you're vulnerable. They see that you're going through something, and they hone in. And that happened to me, and that person was like literally new, you know, and just really was only getting out of it what he wants to get out of it.
Do you mean they just want to know about the drama?
Well, no one wants to go into a relationship with me.
I see what you mean. Okay,
and you know, manipulated the whole kind of situation, really. So when you come out, and I look back now and I think, whoa, I was not ready for that, because I still hadn't learnt. Because all this is a lesson. Everything that happens, I know it's terrible, cliche. Everything happens for a reason. It's
true, though.
It does. Yeah. It is true, and it does happen for a reason. And I think that I've had a real rough blow, but you know, it's kind of, I got knocked down, but I'm back up. Yeah. You know, I'm back up now, and there's a song there somewhere along there.
Do you know what? As soon as you said that, my head went Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. Literally went in my head. That's so funny. I'm glad you did the same thing.
Yeah, my head said it as I was coming out. I was like, I can hear the song.
I do the same thing. If something sounds like a song lyric, I immediately think of the song in my head. And I'm like, do I do this out loud? No, it's not a good point. So I'm just wondering, actually, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or share or make people aware of in terms of, like, you know, what you do and what you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, primarily I'm an HR consultant, and, you know, I've bolted the domestic violence stuff on because it's my experience, because it's my journey, and because I know that I can speak with the passion and the experience, not just standing there like somebody. But I also want to be able to say to people, come on, okay, or to businesses, this is going to be your responsibility. It's such a taboo subject. And, from an HR perspective, though, I see it happening a lot. And from my own experience, I can remember the first case I dealt with back in 2022. And I sat with the director and she was like, oh, they're always having these arguments and, he'll buy her another gift or take her on holiday. It'll all be fine.
Yeah.
And something wasn't right. And I had this conversation with this young girl, lovely young girl. And she started saying these things and I was asking her certain questions.
Yeah.
And then it came out. And the director at the time just sat back and went, she hadn't heard these things before because she hadn't asked her certain questions.
Yeah.
And this girl felt safe enough to be able to share some of the things that have been going on for her. And I said to her, do you need some help? Do you want some help? And she was like, but this is my norm. I don't know how to get out of it. And I said, sweetheart, you do. Like, we can help you. And that was the start. She did, unfortunately, it did get worse for a little while.
Okay, yeah.
But she's now away from him.
But she'd never had that help offered to her. She'd never had someone who understood to say that and be like, look, you can
you can do
change this and get away from this.
Yeah. And the director at the time was like, how did you know how to ask those questions? I went, been around the block a bit.
Yeah. So this is why it helps though, doesn't it? In your position, you know what to look for. And, there's a lot of people that in your position wouldn't have any experience of that. So they wouldn't know.
And people don't like to talk about it either. So they think, in HR, we have really difficult, fierce conversations with businesses, with employees, with employers, so and we're trained enough to have those conversations. The way we go about them obviously is all very different, and there's a certain way you should and a certain way you shouldn't. So I feel like I'm equipped to be able to have these conversations, and I can speak with experience, and I can, when people kind of go, oh, right, okay, yes, they're going through it. And it's like, no, honestly, I get where you're coming from. And I'm not here to sort of say, oh, God, ditch her or ditch him.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of, it has to be at you. And it's such a, employers, I recently did a talk at another event and I said, I was talking about all my HR background and my experience and, bringing in the domestic violence training. I do lots of other training, training managers to have difficult conversations, training managers to deal with sickness or disciplinaries and grievance. I deliver all of that. And you mentioned domestic violence and people go,
they don't want to know. No,
it's scary. They're like, oh, well, that goes on at home.
It's
the ignorance
awkward,
around
isn't
it.
I suppose. It's awkward.
Yeah, and some people are ignorant to it as well. So, from at CLAR, I'm very passionate about it because I've been there and I want to do, rather than just stand on a stage and upset people and make people feel sorry for me. No. And I don't like that survivor thing and I don't like that victim thing. It's like, well, let's do something. Let's stand up and do something about it and actually prevent. We'll never stop it because it's human beings at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Same as we'll never stop bullying, so monkeys still do it to each other now, so it's in us as human beings, but not this, there's something seriously fundamentally wrong. And my case, unfortunately, was not just coercive and controlling behaviour. It did escalate to rape and it did escalate to assault, of which I still suffer with my leg today. So
that's the thing, it can start off very small, can't it, and then escalate. I mean, some people, they'll just have the mental abuse, won't they? But
well, there was a lot of that as well, and when I look back on it, but I did think I was really crazy. I just think to myself, oh my gosh,
what
is this me?
What happened to your leg?
We had an altercation the one night. I was trying to stop him from leaving. I mean, he blamed me. He blamed me because I was trying to stop him from leaving.
Yeah.
And he picked me up and threw me, and my leg twisted and bust all my ligaments in the side.
Oh my God.
So I was having treatment I ended up in hospital. I had treatment for about 6 months, and I still suffer with it today.
In the hospital, did they know what had happened?
Yeah. Okay. But they did, and they wanted to call police, and I said no. I was terrified. I said, if you call the police, I'm going to lose my home. I'll have nowhere to live. You
were protecting him as well. Yeah.
Well, and my children.
Yeah.
So because it was always the threat: if I go, I won't pay the bills, and you'll lose your home. And that was the crux of it for me, because I'd previously been married, and my ex-husband had left, and we did lose our home because of his actions. And so when I first met my ex-partner, I was going through that process of divorce and finding somewhere to live with my 3 children because I'd lost everything at that point. So the biggest fear for me was losing my home, and that's
going
what he
back
used.
into that again.
Yeah, and he would dangle that over me every time.
Do you think, looking on the other side of it, the other person, do you think they're aware of what they're doing to people? Do you think they're fully aware and they fully know what they're doing? Or do you think there's a mental health problem there where they're not actually fully... They don't know that they're that bad. They don't know they're being horrible or treating someone like that. Yeah,
he doesn't know what he's doing. It's everybody else who's doing it. It was me he was married previously, and she was always the problem. He was the one who had to do everything. He was the one apparently she didn't even know how to operate a cash machine. Well, she sure did when he left.
Yeah,
she loved her life.
So do you think he genuinely believed he wasn't doing anything wrong?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Wow.
And it was kind of, when I look back on it, he could. He was the person who struggled to cry. If that's, he'd stand there with this sad face, but not a tear would drop.
Okay.
So I think that's where I go back to the not being emotionally available kind of thing.
Showing
or even,
you're emotional, but you're not emotional.
Yeah.
Like trying to act emotional.
Yeah, dry tears, crocodile tears, whatever it is. Yeah. And he'd say sorry, occasionally, there'd be something and he'd come back and we'd sort things out. And I'd think, okay, fair enough. But the cycle would start again. And it would be, I don't know, me buying the kids a new pair of shoes, be like, well, I've gone and spent money on them again, or to him messing around, messaging somebody online that I would find, but that was never him. It was always me because I shouldn't be looking.
Okay. Okay. So it's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's real emotional toying with your emotions and making you seem like or feel like you're a crazy person. Yeah. And
it's like, well, when and he'd be like, well, we're just messaging, and I'd be like, well, that is tantamount of cheating. It's the same thing. And when you're talking to another woman,
when you're hiding it as well, it's like, why would you? If there's nothing wrong with it, why would you be hiding it?
Yeah, exactly. Or because I was jealous and didn't like him talking. But I was the jealous kind. I didn't like him talking to anybody. But when I met him, he had no friends. He had a guy who he worked with for a long time who was kind of like a friend to him. And so all these people... short turn.
Bang.
So my friends were his friends.
Yeah.
And lots of my friends were female. And I never had an issue. So it was... Never had an issue with him talking to females. It just depended what he was saying. And
it just depends on how you're doing it. If you're on purposely hiding and being sneaky and you're obviously going to think, well, why are you hiding that? Is there something... Yeah, unless you're planning a surprise for me.
Yeah.
So do you talk about this a lot publicly? Not publicly, but like, say for example, you're talking to me now. Do you share your story a lot?
I'm starting to, because I needed to go through... It's only last September I came out of court, just over a year ago. So I needed to go through a process of processing, grieving. Not, I say grieving. It wasn't like the sense of loss for him. I lost myself.
Yeah.
So it was finding Leanne again. Who's that girl? And people have, my friends now go, oh, she's back. And I'm like, hell, I know.
Yeah.
And I feel alive again, and people are like, oh, you really like your old self. So I'm like, there's a tinge of me that isn't. There's that corner in me that's kind of still locked up in barbed wire. So, but so I think for me, it's been very much just trying to find the right time. Yeah. And, I talk about it. I've done a couple of different things like this now when I'm coming out and talking about it. And I'm not just sitting here going, poor me, the world's smallest violin, look what happened to her. Oh, it's so terrible. Yes, it is. Of course it is. But let's do something about it. I want to change a negative into a positive, rather than just sit there and wallow in this terrible feeling, and make a difference for other people. Because if I can save someone's daughter or someone's son, if I can do that, then my job is done, kind of thing. Yeah.
You are using it for good.
Yeah.
Your experience.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So not just... I've been to so many different events where you see people talking, and it's you can't ever justify it. And I've also... It's a weird thing. But again, this is the HR in me. I've put myself in his shoes. And how would I have viewed it if... And I'm just like, well, if he was behaving, or if I was behaving the way he was behaving, geez, you know, if he caught me online and all these different things and told him what, you know, took control of all the finances, you know, he would have had something to say. But because I had no threat over him in terms of, you know, the threat of the roof over my head was enough to make me go running for the hills, you know. So, and what was in him, you know, and for him, he described his childhood as terrible. He never really spoke fondly about his upbringing. And it was really mixed bag what he grew up with.
Do you know what though? You can't make excuses for being horrible to somebody else and making someone else's life hell. Yeah. Like, you can have excuses for being a little bit, you know, you're not necessarily all there, or you're not necessarily confident, or but there's no excuse for treating somebody else who you're supposed to love and care for like trash and ruining their life. Yeah. So,
and just take it, you know, when I look back at it and I think, well, I didn't have a great upbringing either, but you know what? I didn't want to stay in that. I wanted to do something and not become that. Yeah. So I went the opposite way.
Exactly. So it's how you deal with it, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and I know that he, you know, the relationship with his mother was really, really weird. You know, when they talk about mother wounds, which is another buzzword, I'm like, what does that mean? That was his issue. Yeah. And, you know, through it all, I think he could have murdered someone, and you know, she would have still said he was whiter than white. But growing up, he didn't speak very nicely about her growing up. He didn't have a lot to say, but then, you know, to her, he'd be lovely because it was his mum, and because she's his son. Yeah, he's her son rather.
Yeah, so I was agreeing with you then. I was like, it sounded right. Okay, so just to finish up then, what's the future for you then? What have you got planned?
So, so from this year, 2026 is going to be my year. Yeah. So I'm very much focused on my business and growing my business, bigger clients, better clients, and moving. I'm working up and down the UK, but moving more towards the London direction now. So I'm networking in different places, and also, you know, from the domestic violence training perspective, getting that out there, and you know, going into businesses, whether it doesn't matter what type of business it is, or going into different places and just speaking about it, and saying, look, I'm another survivor, and I've had a horrible time. Yeah, I have, but let's do something about it. Yeah, let's just not stand there and talk about it all day long and woe betide, oh poor me kind of thing. We need to change the world, and we need to change people's perceptions around it, and not let it be so taboo, because people are afraid. And the presentation I did a few weeks ago, I did a little bit of role play in it as well, on the HR stuff, and people were like, oh, great role play, Leanne. Nobody talked about the DV stuff, because it's kind of like, they're like, oh yeah, great presentation.
Avoiding that. Yeah. But then if more people are talking about it, there's more awareness. People know how to help more. They know how to deal with it better. And for example, people who are victims know what their options are and how they can get out of the situation they're in. Yeah. So it's all helping people in different groups, the watchers, the people dealing with it, and then the people who are working alongside them. So,
and the people in work who know, you know, they can spot things going on, and they can, it happened to me in the corporate world. You know, my boss knew something was wrong, and she called me the one day. She said, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's like, "No, what's going on?" And she said, "Your phone is constantly lighting up, and every time it lights up, you're not focusing on your work. You know something." And I said, "Oh, look, this has happened." And I told her, and she just went, "I don't even know what to say." And I was like, oh, why did you make me say it then? Because now I've got to put it all back in.
So it wasn't actually helpful.
No, she didn't know what to do. And that's a classic sign for me. Had she been equipped to be able to say, oh my gosh, right, okay, let's get you some help. Do you want us to help you? Because that person has to be ready as well. And if they're not, document it to cover the business perspective, you know, because unfortunately, some people do get killed by their perpetrators as well.
Of course, you know, that's the problem, isn't it? You don't know how severe it's going to get.
Yeah, and if a business knows that's going on and they've done nothing about it to support it, how are they going to feel? So it's kind of really protecting them, and getting things right, really, to make sure that the future coming through, generations coming through, there's a lot of young people now, because of all the whole Andrew Tate thing, is terrible, you know, in terms of some of the way that these kids are thinking these days about, you know, the opposite sex. So it's getting it right and saying no, and we're never going to stamp it out. I'd love to say we could stamp it out,
if only.
Yeah, we won't.
And everything else that's wrong with the world as well.
Yeah.
I know.
But it's like, let's just, we can make a difference. We can't change it 100%, but we can make a difference in saying, this is what it looked like. These are the classic signs. And even if it's not happening directly in the workplace, they might go, oh my God, that's happening to my sister. Or that's happening to my friend. That's, it's just educating people about it, making people aware of the situation rather than, oh, I'll just turn a blind eye. Because you're as bad as if you turn the blind eye.
I think that's a good sentence to end on, actually, is what I think then is the ultimate message is to, I suppose, people need to talk more about it. They need to help more. Yeah. And they need to, people who are dealing with domestic violence, they need to know that there is always an option out. There is always people willing to help. And you're like an example of those kind of people.
And your workplace is is where you spend most of your time. So if they can help or you're afraid to take the time off, or you're afraid, or you're trying to do something on your lunch break, there's going to be these paid time now to come in, and be able to go out and have that appointment or whatever it might be that they need. So that should really pave the way, really, to taking the lid off it a bit more.
That'll help a lot, won't it?
For sure, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming and talking about it. It's a really personal thing you've been sharing, so appreciate it.
That's okay.
And
thank you for having me.
Thank you.